Hey guys, welcome to the Unshakable Man podcast. It's Dave Shepard and I again, Chris Wilson with the Unshakable Man, and we are on day 4 of our 5-day emotional mastery audio training, which is really a series of 1 hour conversations between me and Dave about the far-reaching components of emotional awareness. All of these different things that we get to work with in order to become aware of our awareness and to be able to work with our emotional experience as whole human beings and unshakable men, rather than just looking at emotional awareness as uh, the way that really what's inspiring me to do this with you, Dave, I think, is that just over and over and over again, I see in the manosphere and in the blogosphere that there is this predominant disconnection from the body, or this over usage of like stoic principles, or mindset, so top down, when all of the nervous system research, all of the everything in somatic practices is showing that when we leave out the body, we leave out becoming a whole human being who can go back to those places inside, right, that block you from showing up in your lives and relationships, and really do the creative work of bringing your full self out into the world. And it isn't so simple as just a post on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
And so awesome. Awesome. So let's review. What did we go over yesterday, and what was our stretch? The stretch was to do a check-in throughout the day. I cheat. I had 7 times to do check-ins today because I had 7 one-on-one client sessions and a men's group, or 6 one-on-one client sessions and a men's group. But what was your experience of that like?
Uh, I find them to be different every time, but the effect is always the same, which is that it's grounding and I gain some presence from it. Um,
Yeah.
and I also get to tap into my body, which most of the time actually turns things a little bit more positive. That's not always the case, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I Cool. So last week, or yesterday, not last week,
Yeah.
we talked about top down versus bottom up, and what you're sharing right there about it's not always great in there, right? But it usually ends up being positive, right?
Yeah.
Being able to be with an experience as it is a positive experience, right? Like trying to change an experience as it is a negative experience. Um, but that top down versus bottom up and the autonomic nervous system. And we talked about how there's 3 really like gears to the autonomic nervous system. There's the fox, or fight or flight, which is get up and go, happen to your life, happen to the environment, and it's constructive because it really helps us armor up and get out into the world, right, in order to make things happen. But if we stay in that state for too long, it becomes burnout. And
Mhm.
pretty much nowadays technology, we are stuck in that all of the time because of constantly being on and the inability to shut down after, with the always on culture that we're in, right? And then we have the 2 other systems, the ventral vagal and the dorsal vagal. And the dorsal is like the downshifting, and it's constructive in order to get us out of that fight or flight, or that happened to our life, and to be able to downshift. But when we downshift and we don't come into a state of connection, and instead we bounce back up into a state of fight or flight, and we're constantly bouncing between one and the other. So what I would like to be intense about this, I'm drinking coffee every morning, let's say, maybe having some Adderall, maybe like getting in an argument or being frustrated at my computer, pounding on the keys, then coming home or having a beer or having a drink or having a weed gummy to down regulate, right? And then or like sitting in front of the TV and numbing out. All of this isn't real connection. You're not actually getting into the body, right? And down regulating in the way that you would in a men's group with a bunch of other nervous systems where you're truly connecting, or in a somatic meditation or in breath work like we teach in the Unshakable Man. So the thing that I want to bring in there is all from what you said about checking in, is just picking up on the concept of getting out of my head and into my body, and that check-in takes me from, I say, I am Chris and I am checking in. And I do this sometimes in the car, right? Like totally alone. And then I'll be driving down the street and I notice a girl running. I notice a white fluffy dog. I notice some white fluffy clouds. Deep breath in my nose, right? And then what do I notice on or in my body? And because we're simply noticing what is on the outside of us, we're awakening our noticing skills, right? Instead of our judgment of what I am feeling on or in the body. And that is the practice of getting out of our head and into our body in just like a moment, from moment to moment basis. Does that make sense? Like why
Yeah, absolutely.
that's important?
Yeah.
So today we're going to transition into, well, I think the final point, the final piece that I think we creatively need uh, to work with here from yesterday is that our nervous system is non-conscious. It is reacting to the environment as it has adapted, right? And it is simply trying to keep us safe. And then we are responding to it, right? And that's where we got I am that which is experiencing, right? That's where we got that piece of like, oh, I am not my body. I am not the sensations happening on or in my body that are anxiety or our stress, right? Or our numbness. And yet we're in this body all day long, our whole life. And so we forget that. And the sensations of our fight or flight response go so fast, and that we are not able to make a gap between that stimulus in the body and the response or the reaction in our head. And so we're projecting out onto the world, right? And so today, I really feel caring. I feel compassionate about wanting to make sure I'm compassionate about the speed to which we're talking about all these things, and that the nervous system stuff is, we are, this is why the Unshakable Man community exists, and it's my mission that went to make this stuff easy to understand and actually fun and integrated to pick up these skills. But the conversation we're having here is just like the signpost to, hey, you have a nervous system, it is nervous, and it is your responsibility to learn how to self-regulate and how to change your nervous system's patterns. Okay. And this is where I want to make the transition into tonight, is that we can change the autonomic patterns of our nervous system. What does that mean to you when I say that? That I can change the autonomic, or the unconscious patterns of your nervous system. What
Well, I
does
think
that mean to you?
on the high level, it means going from unskilled and poorly trained to
Mhm.
skilled and well trained, right? Like that's kind of what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
To answer the question more spot on, um, I really like I really like the words of like creating space, right? Like
Hmm.
something happens in the world. There's something that's testing in your environment, and there's now space between your reaction, right? And you're able to then
Uh-huh.
respond.
Yep.
Um, and I
Okay.
like the
So
word you use of being resourceful or like of having resources to respond, right?
yeah,
Um,
you said two words, testing and
mm,
resourceful.
yep,
Testing. Things are testing me in my environment.
yep.
Okay. So what might a test be? Let's come up with two.
Well, that's like my favorite one that you always say is like the tormentor, right? This
Yeah.
idea that like your significant other or your friends or colleagues, they're your tormentors, right? Like they're
Yeah.
your
Or
guide. Like
starting a
you're on a
business.
tour, starting a business, right?
Yep.
Like you're on a tour and they're
Hmm.
mentoring you, right?
Yeah.
But we all know what torment is, like, and we all have had those moments with our significant other. It's like you got to be kidding me here.
Right.
Um,
Right. So our automatic non-conscious reaction. So autonomic is unconscious. Autonomic, unconscious reaction. A reaction is unconscious, is to tighten up, right? And to think in our head, how can I communicate this through, which is making my face tight and creating tension, right?
mm,
The key here that I want to make is that if we are reacting, we are cutting off our our ability to adapt with a new kind of behavior. We actually cut off the creative, compassionate, caring, calm, connected part of us that can think divergently. And what we actually do is only go to the part of the brain that is using past experience to work with the present. So I'm reacting to the environment, the test, based on the way other things in the past that I have survived through have made me feel. So the brain uses emotions as the filing system for standard operating procedures,
mm.
because that's the fastest way when the plane is crashing to make sure that it can find the action that helped you survive last time.
Plane crash might not be the best example. You're going down, but
But
a
that's
tiger
but
chasing
that's
you, right? Like, yeah, that
yeah,
you got a
right,
chance,
right.
right?
But also the plane's crashing like every day and you got to land it, right? and
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and
right, yeah,
that's what you have to do. Like every day you got to land the plane smoothly on the ground, right? And
yeah.
most people can't. Most men can't do that, and they go back up into their head, right? Back into this place that which is all based in fear and disconnection and anxiety and stress and things that happen to me and victimizing. And then they get more aggressive, and then you man up, and then you cultivate a bigger mask, right? And you're holding on to this whole thing, and it all requires energy. So now let's transition into the 7 principles of spiritual psychology. Okay. Okay. I'm going to move through these briskly and then we're going to go through them slowly. All right. So the first principle is we are having a human experience to realize and the embodiment of our true self. We are having a human experience. That is what life is. We're having a human experience to awaken to the realization of the embodiment, to live out our true self. This is called healing, or in the process of individuation, becoming a full person, a real person. Where this is built on is the fact that we have a protective mask or an identity that is formed to help us fit in as children, as adolescents, and that we hold on to that and we think, this is who I am. But underneath, there's actually all of this other stuff that got pushed away or exiled just through the process of survival and fitting in. And then once I become conscious of that in any little way, I start to be able to be more authentic. I'm actually learning to go back to the places inside that are blocking those parts from showing up in my lives and relationships, and integrating that, allowing my true self to come out. And this is the process of what's called individuation or healing. Okay.
Mm.
And this is because of what we talked about before, that myth of monolithic personality versus the multiplicity of self, right? Like I am a collection of parts. I have my managerial parts. And this is what happens when you lost your job, right? And or when you quit you left work,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, well, who am I now? Like I don't
Yeah.
have this external identity that I held on to, right? And that's a big thing for many men, that or the loss of a partner, right? Now, in the principle number 2 is that individuation is a healing and holding process, meaning in order to become a whole human, in order to become your true self, you actually need to heal, which means bringing loving awareness back to the places inside, the protective parts of us, our traumas, our anxieties, and our stresses that live in the body. Okay. We have to bring our loving awareness to that and learn to care for it and to heal it so that it becomes less reactive and can transmute, change, shift, step aside so that our full energy can come out into the world. Okay. If you've heard like trauma is in the body, anxiety is in the body, stress is in the body. So imagine your partner getting upset with you, and then you're not even aware to do the kinds of things we do. Partner gets mad at you. What do? You try to get them to make you feel better. No, the unshakable man knows that it is my job to be the primary caretaker for my parts. It's my job to learn how to go in and to be like, wait, what am I feeling? Oh, I'm feeling tightness in my chest. Oh, I need to learn how to soothe that and care for that because my partner isn't capable of doing that for me right now. Right? I see your head moving up and down. Is it? I feel like life force coming into my face. Like it's energizing to even talk about this. Like for how many men out there don't know that when they get in an argument with their partner, that think of how bad the arguments are because I can't feel better until you say or do something that makes me feel better.
Yeah, that is the whole thing. Well, it starts with an attack, and I used to think that was a funny way to describe it, but when it
Okay.
comes right down to it, you're reacting to something that someone else said, and my experience of it is that my body feels it as an attack on who I am.
Okay.
It's not
So
like I'm
that is what
physically
we
being
call,
attacked. I'm not like actually fighting like physically, but it's just like I'm
right,
offended, I'm
right.
scared, I'm
Yes.
sad, whatever it
So
might be,
that is
right?
called a parts attack, right? So
Yeah,
a part of us, and we said we weren't going to get into internal family systems tonight, but we do kind of need to bring it in here, right? So I have these
yeah,
managerial parts of myself, and then these firefighter parts of me that come in. And when she does something or he does something, or when my job or someone in my work does something, this is what holds us back because is not our intellect. It's our ability to respond and to care, to emotionally regulate. That is what holds men back from their greatest, bringing their gifts out in the world and accomplishing their dreams. It's not how smart you are, it's your ability to self regulate, to not need things to be going well in my job, to not need things to be going, because then I can be a beginner. I can make it through being shitty at something until I'm good at it, to be
yeah,
consistent enough, right? Because I'm becoming unshakable. That's where the unshakable man comes from, is the ability to find unshakable self-confidence, to not need to get my self-confidence from generating this mask. Okay. So we're on number 2. Okay. So first we're having a human experience of awakening to our true self. That's what life is. It's awakening to this realization. That's what awakening is. Isn't that nuts? Like I didn't know this 15 years ago. I didn't know that awakening was a physical thing, honor in the body. It's not an idea. It's not magical thinking. Like this is grounded spiritual psychology, like 101, right?
Hmm.
And so I have this true self energy that's coming out and I'm becoming aware of that. And when we realize it, we're like, whoa, I start to see the world in a new way. So we're having a process of individuation, which is a healing and holding process of becoming a whole person. Each person has a unique curriculum for healing and expansion in life. Each person has their own curriculum. Your problems in your life are your curriculum, and we each have our own. So the triggers and the test is is your curriculum. And
And
when
we
that
know this, right?
happens,
Like
right.
we've all seen a friend who like loses their shit over something, and we're like, that's just not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But that is their problem, and that is their curriculum, right?
Uh-huh.
And something that
And
I might react to, my friend would never react to, right?
right, right. And your ability to witness them and to be with them and to not solve the problem for them, but to be there open and witnessing this person, sharing your experience. That's what happens in a men's group. It's monkey see, monkey do. I get to see you, I get to witness you open and work through your challenges, but don't do it for you. I'm not trying to actually coach you through it or tell you what to do. I'm sharing my practice in front of you and you're sharing yours with me. And then we see each other through that mirror principle that we talked about. I am who I think you think I am. Right? That's what
Hmm.
happens in the group. So even if you're different than me, which is even better because I see myself in relationship to how different you are, but the same. Okay. So this is number 4, which is how you relate to the issue is the issue. Just like the sensation in your body, how you respond or how you relate to the sensation in your body is the issue. It's not the sensation. Anger is not a bad emotion. There are no get good or bad emotions. There's only constructive or right? Starting to
Hmm.
make this connection between the somatic and the spiritual psychology side of it. So the 5th one is that we are 100% responsible for our inner experience. Our power is our freedom to choose our inner and outer responses in all situations. And that's not a reaction, that's our response. Okay. And so then there the last 2 are that there are only calls for love and expressions of love, and that love is not an emotion, right? Love is awareness. It is loving awareness. And so when I take my awareness into my body, now sometimes when we go over this with guys, we think about this as like we're 100% responsible for our inner experience. It's very important to check in with the embodied practice because we can, if I feel tight, honor in my body, it's do I feel tight or do I feel open? Do I feel tight or do I feel open? That's how we discern our way through this process rather than just spiritually bypassing, right? Like thinking our way through the problem because it's a somatic embodied activity. It's honor in the body. Okay. So
Yeah.
the stretch that we have for today that we're going to have for guys is to wait for a problem to notice yourself saying, I have a problem with something. Um, and so an example of this is like, I have a problem with rumination, or I have a problem with this person, or I have a problem. Like, notice yourself sitting in the car and getting anxious about something, right? And then go, oh, wait, I'm having a problem. And then you ask 4 questions to turn this on. What is this here to teach me? So first you notice I have a problem with, You go, oh, wait, I have a problem with. And you start to notice yourself tightening. And so the way you notice problems is the same way you noticed it. You notice the attack in your body. Okay. And that's the trigger. Remember we had a stretch for you in group, and it was an
Yeah.
automatic thing. We don't have to talk
Yeah.
about the specific part, but the stretch was to notice when your body tightened in relationship to a
Yeah.
trigger, right? A very specific trigger. That is the somatic awareness, to turn on your conscious awareness of being like, okay, how, whoa, my body is waking me up. Instead of going into thinking, it's, ooh, what am I feeling? Where do I feel my body? What do I need? Oh, there's tension there. Okay, I have a problem with. Then it's, what is this here to teach me? And then you feel through your answers until you find one that makes you feel open or closed, and you
Mm.
try them on. So if I'm in the car and I'm like having anxiety and I'm like, oh crap, okay, I'm having a problem with, I'm thinking about this thing over and over again. Okay, what is this here to teach me? This is here to teach me how to not hang out with people like this. And I'm like, ugh, right? Okay. Uh, that felt rough. This is here to teach me how to choose myself. Oh, right? Like I saw your face change,
Mm.
right? That one felt different. It's like how to choose myself. Okay, that felt open. How can I show up in a more empower? What is my intention? And this is the question. My intention is to choose myself. Okay. Okay, how can I show up in a more empowering way to choose myself? So you're working through and you're opening to this ventral vagal state in your nervous system to connect it to your nervous system. The second you notice what's happening on or in your body and you start to take conscious awareness over it, you start to come into a down regulated ventral vagal state. If you can do this, it's very, very likely that you are not hijacked, right? Because the part of the nervous system and the brain to be able to do this line of questioning means you had to catch yourself. You had to catch yourself getting hooked and go, wait, what I have a problem with. What is this here to teach me? Answer the question. What is my intention here? Okay, I want to actually do that. That's my intention. And my intention is to not do that. Okay, well, then I'm going to ask another question. And then how can I show up in a more empowering way to make that happen? And this is the self-coaching part, right? Of like, okay, well, I keep getting myself into this situation because I I leave myself on I leave my Friday nights totally open, and then I say yes to hanging out with people that like flake. So I'm going to start planning something for myself, right? It is so versus getting angry at that person who didn't show up. I'm making this up completely, by the way.
Mm.
Does it make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So that's it. Those are the 7 principles of spiritual psychology. We're having a human experience to awaken to the realization of the embodiment of our true self, and to be able to learn the skills to bring that out into our life and relationships. And what we did just now was that process of individuation, of healing, right? Because get noticing the tension on in your body and learning to do that in real time, like actually learning how to do that. Now, I just want to like future pace on the possible potential future reality. If if I if I didn't do that, I could have gone with my reaction and sent an angry text to this person, or bottled it up and been like, this is just the kinds of friends that I have in my life. Right. And you're not developing any type of relational, intimate skill or somatic awareness on or in your body. You're living up in your head in these judgmental scripts of this is how people are. This is what happens when I try to make plans. Catastrophization, automatic negative thinking, rumination, and it's all fear based. It's all based on I am afraid of being abandoned. So I am going to let people or things into my life that don't serve me. And I don't know how to cultivate this sense of wholeness, honor in my body, and then bring that out into the world. It's like as simple as that. I've worked with like over 600 men, and this is just it. I don't care if you're a CEO and you're making $1 million, $2 million a year. I need to say more, $5 million, $10 million a year, sadly, and or you're making $30,000 a year, right? And you have 3 kids. It's the same. We're all learning to do the same thing. Okay.
Chris, do you think you ever become awakened, or is it just a continual process? That's question number one. And question number two is, can anyone escape this? I get the sense that you're never finished and that nobody it's not possible. I just have a brand new baby daughter.
So my first
Like
answer is
there's no
yes.
chance that there's no chance that she won't have to do this own exploration on her own.
Dave, my sense is that you are awakened, and my sense is that I am awakened, but I am not always in that state. And that one for you and I to even be able to have this type of conversation, for a man who is listening to this in the future, I am awakening. This is the thing about this is that I think we deitize this stuff. Like for a long time, I thought like, oh, do I need, I projected an image onto the world as if I was a triathlete. Like I used to want to go to like the Olympics for cycling, right? You know that about me. Like I wanted to do triathlons at the national team level and stuff. I thought about this stuff like that, right? As if um, in order to get to this level, this place, I have to be, I have to um, withhold or remove things that allow me to be a normal human being. There's a very specific word for this. The type of religious practice is uh, it's oh man, I'm reading Wild Mind right now, and he just talked about this. It's like the removal of common egoic things that make us who we are from an identification thing. So like not eating or fasting or not having sex, right? Like not dancing, right? And what that is that is a path to awakening. Yet there's one clear distinction. It removes the path towards wholeness. All of those practices remove your humanness in order to find an enlightened state. All the somatic practices across all religions that go bottom up are about through a process of opening to become whole. Native American practices, somatic experiencing, tantra, certain forms of yoga, right? But there's contingencies in these, right? Zen Buddhism, right? It's all about opening to the individuation of who you really are and learning to go into the shadow and to do that shadow work, moving through your sinister shadow, dealing with the collective unconscious. And in that process, because you're going in there, you need to find your golden gifts. And that's your golden shadow. That's your soul's gift to the world, the seed that it wants to grow into. And many people never get this opportunity because they never move beyond survival and adolescent reactions. Right. But that's what we just did with this Friday example. Right. So I do want to answer your question though, is yes, I do. The process of awakening is realizing that you are capable of healing of bringing a loving awareness to the places inside that don't have a voice. And doing that repeatedly over and over again throughout your life, and having major ones and little ones and major ones and little ones. But then what I will say is that what happens is when we have a major opening event, is that then the spiritual materialism side of it comes in, which is trying to recreate that event.
I heard a great line from a teacher that all epiphanies become ruts. And I think
Yes.
that's speaking to the same thing, right?
Yes. This is one of the reasons why having in our 5-day somatic meditation training, and in the 5-day somatic meditation training, and in the 90-day nervous system mastery, and in the 5-day unshakable, all of this stuff that we're doing, there's a that I'm guiding men to get out of their heads and to bring their awareness to the unconditioned space in their belly, and that space is something to experience. It is empty and vibrant and creative and always changing, and we can't name it. And the reason why we want that emptiness in there, I think one of the fundamental reasons, is the same reason why we want the emptiness in a men's group, is that if I come into the group and I am in some way wanting to try to recreate the experience from last week, I'm now wanting something out of this experience, just like your meditation. But if my intention is to clear and to empty, to drop out of my head negoic patterns and to get into the vibrant unconditionality of this empty space, and to discover how something inside of there, this is why it's called something to experience and not joy, or
Mhm.
the flame, or the body of Christ is within you, right? Like, because then we deitize it, right? So it's something, and this is called somatic spirituality. Um, but it's that but I do recommend reading Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism, right? Like, I think you've read that, right?
I haven't yet. It's on the short
Okay.
list. Yeah.
All right, we'll do it. We'll do it. But okay. Cool.
You want to move to the emotion stuff?
I do. I was wondering, what
Yeah.
was your second question? You said like it was
Oh, just like
awakening.
the first part was like, do you ever arrive? Like, do you ever actually become awakened? Right. And I think my thought on that was just like, does the healing
Yeah.
ever end? Right. That was kind of the question. And then the other part is like, can
Mm.
you escape the need for this? Right. And my reflection on
So
that is
that,
like, no matter how well I raise my daughter, no matter how aware I am, no matter how awakened I am, no matter how present I am,
mm,
like there's just no way that any human can skip this part of life.
and
That's
nor
my
would we
that
want
that
to,
that yeah, I
right?
think that's right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. But I want to be careful of like, yeah, that's right or wrong. But the first thing you asked, I felt like it was, do you ever arrive? But then the second question, and my sense of that is no. Like
Mm.
we're continuously opening to the experience of the wholeness of totality, like as much as in a dualistic sense, just opening
Yeah.
to the to oneness. Um, but then you ask, like, does the healing ever stop? And that, I think, is a more interesting question, because the 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 beautiful part from my own experience about this process is how intense and raw the opening, the awakening to this process is for so many men. because we don't. I'm reminded of a phrase from a saying from Shogren Trungpa, who wrote Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism. He's like, I wish this on no one, right? Like, but once you start, don't stop, because hell is being aware of this and turning back. That's like a self-created hell, right? Of knowing how what I am capable of opening to, and that I am actively running away from it, right? And so that with addiction and trauma and anxiety and deaths of despair, there's so many men that I've worked with that have come into this work not because they wanted to, but because they needed to. And that process is an incredible time. It can be like a dark night of the soul in a man's life, but it's also an incredible rebirth of realization of this is what my life is about, like a deepening and a releasing of that egoic mask that he was holding on to so hard, right? But then the process of healing becomes not identifying with healing. In my senses, is it becomes a process of identifying with holding. Of now I'm in this new territory of I'm aware of my trauma, I'm aware of like this thing, and instead of identifying with it and getting stuck at that stage, I'd be like, I am a person with PTSD, I am a person with trauma, or I am a person with addiction. I am now somebody who is practicing the subtle joy of being and learning to bring my skill, my creativity out into the world with more purpose, right? For the good of everyone and everything, which is why, like in the 90-day nervous system mastery, around day 40 through 90, we transition into just you're doing like the same practices in the body with the subtle joy of with the noticing something to experience in your body. But then it becomes about, okay, now let's actually call this the subtle joy of being, and now bring this conjured subtle joy of being into stuff that you're doing in your life, right? Like your taxes, like dealing with somebody who's upset, and now you're literally transmuting the tension of the world into joy, because you're capable, because you're not getting hooked as much. Right? And I think that's how we heal the world. That's how, and you care for the environment, right? You care about, and you see the stupidity of pretending that you do care for the environment the way like I do, where I feel it sucks having this somatic practice, because now every time we order takeout, I really feel how we have like these 7 plastic dishes, and it's like, oh, I can't unsee it anymore, right? Because you feel it in your body, and that it, right?
The emotions, man.
I'm so curious to hear from guys who are listening to this later.
Doing good.
I'm so curious. All right, let's spend 5 minutes on these 8 components, because these 8 components I think are something it is beyond me that I don't hear more people talking about this. So now that we're aware of our awareness, and we have this awareness of that emotions are physical sensations happening in the body, how can we begin to work with that, right? And these 8 components are like 8 different views on that from different perspectives. And so the way I look at this is these are like playing tools. Like you can play with them in different ways. And so I was just going to read them out loud. It's emotional vocabulary, emotional embodiment, emotional granularity, emotional differentiation, emotional balance, emotional agility, and emotional contagion. And then the last one is a present state of a calm mind. Okay.
And these are the 8 components of emotional awareness.
Yes. So if you can work on all 8 of these, you increase your emotional awareness. You become a more emotionally aware person. And so the first one, when we check in, what do? We use emotional vocabulary, right? So instead of saying, I feel stressed, like today, I noticed some anxious thoughts that I haven't had in a long time. And I was like, okay, wait a second. First of all, this is new. So I feel tired. I feel rushed. Uh, and yeah, just physical energy was low. So like, dude, check it. Right. So emotional vocabulary.
There's some great downloads too on the internet for like all the different words you can use to describe your emotional state. And I find when I first got introduced to this, I was surprised at how little vocabulary I had to describe my
Yeah.
emotions.
Yeah. So
Like
we have a
really,
3
really
emotional
crazy how
vocab.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was nuts, right? How little
So we'll
I
put
had.
in the show in the notes for this lesson, we'll put our emotional vocabulary worksheets. We have 3 of them that we use that are really great. And one is from the Dalai Lama and the on and the Atlas of Emotions, which are the emotions words based on sensation across cultures. And then there's the American one for the English language. But the best part about emotions is that there's emotions if for other vocabulary words for other
Mm,
languages, right? That we don't have. And that
totally.
get that, right? Like Eskimos having multiple words for snow, right? Like
Yeah.
we don't even have these words. So emotional vocabulary, emotional embodiment. So immediately we went from emotional vocabulary to embodiment. Think of that, right? So
Yeah.
embodiment is turning it up, honoring your body. It's interoception. It's coming into the body and noticing the sensations happening on or in the body. And if you are numb or disconnected or feel like you can't feel your body, that is your path. That just keep going. Keep going in there, gentlemen, because that's your path. Okay. Emotional granularity is what do you think emotional granularity is?
I think that is like the distinguishing between we'll use the onion metaphor, right? It's like you're peeling back the different layers of the onion, right? Like there's like I'm continually still having epiphanies about my emotions
Mhm.
like regularly, right?
Okay. I when you
Like better
said
discernment
so
is a better way to put it, maybe. Like
okay.
it's like
Yeah.
increased discernment. Yeah.
I prefer to stick to the granular, like just imagine it as granulars of sand, right?
Yeah.
Like can I like can I pinpoint, can I really use this experience right now to be like, oh, this is what this is frustration, right? Like, oh, that's what this is. All right. But then differentiation is when I'm feeling, I'm like, okay, I'm for the moment, I'm able to differentiate between am I angry at Anna or am I hurt? Right? Like and really learning to differentiate, right? So vocabulary is top down, embodiment is bottom. It's bringing it up, honor in the body. Granularity and differentiation are like telling them apart, like getting more granular and differentiating between what am I feeling, this, not that. And then the last 3 I like to think about on like a macro or micro scale of balance is like how what is my on it for a given time period, how balanced is my emotional state, right? And agility is how quickly do I bounce back, to a state of acquiescence, not numbness. How quickly do I bounce back? And then contagion is, am I picking up the emotions of another person? And this is wild to appreciate in group.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Awesome. So let's leave it there. Right on the dot.
Nailed it.
Yeah. 8 components of emotional awareness. And we talked about the 7 principles of spiritual psychology. And we talked about noticing tests and triggers and using a test or a trigger to turn on that response system. Right. So I feel like conflicted here about, do we give over stretches? But one that we've done, we did one in the past, which was each day you do a different thing. So like today's emotional vocabulary, tomorrow's embodiment, next day's granularity. So right, like this is a 1-day thing. So you literally could just, tomorrow we could just have a stretch of just noticing each of these for a moment. Right. Or do we give the stretch of the self-coaching technique, right? Of okay, I have a problem with what is this here to teach me? How can what is my intention? And how can I show up in a more empowering way to make that happen? I like that one.
Yeah, let's go with that. Because
Okay, cool.
that really touches on the emotional awareness stuff anyways.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, so our stretch is to notice ourselves saying, I notice a problem. That's the first thing. And the first thing is noticing a problem as tension in the body. So when you start to get attuned to how your body is closing, and a frivolous one is best, right? Like a wonderful frivolous problem, right? That comes up in a day. So tomorrow, our stretch is to prime ourselves right now to notice ourselves having a problem by noticing tension in the body, and then go, oh, I have a problem with blank. And then ask ourselves, what is this here to teach me? What is this here to teach me? Right. And give it a few answers and feel them. And then ask it, what is my intention here once you find one? And be like, that's it. It's to do that. It's to do this thing. Right. And then ask, how can I show up in a more empowering way to make that happen? I do this about once a week on my own, just so you know, and you can get really good at this, like really, really good. And when you share it in group with the guys in group and you hear how another man does it, you get really, really good at it because you get to hear how another man does it. So I just want to share that as another tidbit of, for any man that might be listening to this in the future, of why you would want to join an Unshakable Man group or to be in coaching.
Chris, do you have 2 minutes? Let's do one with me
Yeah.
because I have a ridiculously frivolous one.
Okay,
That
great.
just happened to me a few hours ago.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
I get off a call at noon, and our call started at 1, so I have an hour, and I had to do a couple things around the house, and then I went out to go grab some lunch quickly, and I noticed that I was rushing, and it does not take an hour to go to the couple places and eat the lunch I was going to get. Right, it's like maybe 20 minutes. So I really had at least twice as much time as I needed, and I could just feel my whole system being like excited, like um I
Okay,
was on a
so
3 hour call, so there were yeah.
I have a problem with, answer that. I have a problem with.
um I have a problem with feeling rushed.
Okay. So
Yeah.
what is this here to teach me?
Um,
Try a few.
yeah.
Like, see.
Teaching me to be aware of subtle emotions, teaching me
Ooh.
um, teaching me that this is a speed that I like to move at. Um, Teaching me that this is maybe a speed that is not as healthy, even though I'm accustomed to it.
Okay,
Um,
so slow down. Come back to the first and the second one and feel those. Feel
what
how
I said, what was the first one
how
I
they,
said?
this is teaching me to feel my emotions.
Yeah, this is teaching me to feel my emotions.
Does that feel open?
That one, that one feels good because it to me. This was like a granularity thing,
I
right? It was like
I'm
a
gonna be
real
really
subtle
I'm
one.
gonna be real, yeah, straightforward with you. The second you said that, I felt open and excited. Like,
Yeah.
ooh, wow, he hit that early. Okay.
Hmm.
So then what is your intention here?
To improve my skill of noticing these more um, subtle emotions.
Okay. To use this as a way to open myself up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
to like improve my skill, right? This
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
heard you say
Exactly.
to improve your skill.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So how can I show up in a more empowering way to make that happen?
My gut just is like continue to um, to kind of prime myself, right, so that I'm aware of these things. Um,
Uh-huh.
and I think the reason I was primed was because of our group piece, right? Even though this wasn't supposed to be my trigger for my stretch this week,
Uh-huh.
I was paying attention to. I think I was paying attention to my core, frankly,
Uh-huh.
and the
Yeah.
sensations that go on there, and that kind of that neutral feeling
Yeah.
that I was describing the other day.
Yeah.
And that's not what I felt. I felt rushed,
Yeah.
right? But it was
Yeah.
because I was primed to try to remember that.
Yeah. So when you before you gave the explanation, I was visualizing you as myself. I was visualizing myself having this stretch, having this. My intention is to use this to increase my skill of
Mm,
like emotional awareness. And so then when you said, like, how can I show up in a more empowering way to do that? I can like look for this to happen again.
mm,
And next time I'm gonna like soften and open to be with it. Right. Like to right. Instead of just slowing down, I'm gonna soften to open and be
mm,
with it. Like use it as a trigger to open and to allow it to open me. And like when I do this, like my hands go out to the side, like I loosen my grip, loosen my eyes. But I want you to be as colorful in your visualization of your embodiment as what I just described. Right.
mm.
I don't want you to just steal mine. I want you to actually think like, how can I show up in a more empowering way to do that? And then answer in your own language. So how can you show up in a more empowering way to have this open you up and increase your skill? That's the question.
Yeah. Um, I can slow down um, when I notice something like this, the emotion. Um, I can slow down and ask what it's here to teach me. I think that was a really powerful question in this. It's just like give it. I
Okay.
recognized it. I was able to describe it, and then just the what is it here to teach me is
Uh-huh.
enough of a next step.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't, I'm, I am going to step in just because I'm here with you. Like I'm not
Yeah,
just
of
a
course.
bystander. So I want to, that also is a beautiful learning from this, and it's enough as it is. Exactly where you are is enough, and because this is what this is intuitive. So I want you to know that you're, even if I didn't do anything right here and I just was like, yeah, like my sense is you're really into it. You're on the you're on it. You're on.
Yeah.
Like you actually don't
Yeah.
need what I'm going to say next.
Yeah.
But because we're practicing in group, like there's an automatic trigger there, right? Like you're going to be out rushing again in the future, right? And you can be more advanced than this. So it's like the, and you said skill, right? And so like to me,
Yeah.
skill is you're learning to, instead of shutting this down and being like, I either need to slow down or so this doesn't happen, or uh or I need to like feel it, which kind of like gets in the way. It's like, no, I want you to just soften, like
Mhm.
you're an athlete who's like a golfer, a pro golfer who's holding his golf club softly but powerfully. It's not
Mhm.
right. I want you allow your body to wake you up and to be like, oh, I'm rushing. And I was that's what I forgot to say is when you took a breath, you put your head back. I was expecting you to say, I'm going to take a soup breath and open to feel it more.
Mhm.
Right. That's all. And then if you do that, celebrate.
All right.
Right. Like I did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And to the guys who might be listening, the reason we celebrate at the end is to start to train ourselves to do this work. Because when we celebrate, it's like the cherry on top to our nervous system. It tells the brain like, hey, I did something good. And this is how you like self-coach yourself into responding in a more empowering way. But Dave, dude, that's actually not a small one. I really appreciate the one that you brought in, because that's that subtle tension that carries throughout your day that completely zaps your energy
Mhm.
to just move effectively from one thing to the next.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So yeah, it's beautiful. Awesome, man. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I'm really looking
You
forward to
too.
our last day tomorrow.
I'm looking forward to it as well.
Awesome, man. Well, guys, if you've been listening this far, it probably means you are an amazing fit for the Unshakable Man community, and the Unshakable Man self-confidence 5-day. So we have 3 5-day courses at the Unshakable Man, and I want to invite you to go over to unshakableman.com, and you're going to find there the ability to sign up for the Unshakable Man community and course bundle. This bundle includes the 5-day Unshakable Self-Confidence course, the 5-day somatic meditation training, and the 5-day emotional mastery challenge, and then the 90-day nervous system mastery challenge, as well as once a week we record Unshakable Man. We host a live Unshakable Man breathwork session, which is absolutely amazing. And we have a live community men's group. But each of these challenges have been have been created by me and the men in the community to practice what Dave and I are talking about here. And the 5-day model has proven to be the really the coolest one for our adult learning, because you can set it up over the weekend, get familiar with what you need to do, get it on your schedule, and then just do it. And none of them should take more than 30 minutes to an hour a day to throw into your schedule. But then once you learn how to do it, it could take less than that. And the 90-day nervous system mastery challenge has been really, really awesome to put together. And all of this is a creative expression from my heart. And so thank you, Dave. Thanks for being a part of this, and thanks for following along.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Good night, man. Bye.
Later.